Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Timist Podcast Series. My name is James, and I am the Timist and the host of the thing you're currently listening to. Today's guest is someone who's probably taught you a thing or two about watches. Formerly known as the Talking Hands, he's a master storyteller with a keen eye for capturing the essence of a watch and delivering all of its details in a manner that keeps us glued to our seats. It's Andrew Morgan. We had such a great time together that we actually had to split this episode into two parts. In this part one, we'll be talking about his experiences working with Studio Underdog and fears, crafting engaging narratives. We also learn a bit more on how he's been helping Christopher Ward with the Loco rollout, and also discuss how his very own watch channel and personal content creation journey has been coming along. Later, we dive into the ideation and creative process in finding stories to explore, as well as debate whether a watch can succeed on its own merits without any marketing. To close this part one out, we talk about one of his grails, explore seriously underrated watches, and dissect the nuances between buying a watch because of its investment potential versus a watch that holds its value. All this and so much more. So sit back, relax, grab a drink and a snack as we get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Timist Podcast Series. Today, I am humbled and blessed to have someone here who has played a large part in the general education and curiosity creation of what is the watch space. Most of you probably know him as the Talking Hands from Watchfinder, but I know him as my friend who loves cheese. I am, of course, talking about the inimitable, quite formidable Andrew Morgan. Andrew, welcome. How are you today?
That was a good intro. I like that intro. And I do like cheese, and I have a cheese drawer. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm talking to you, so it's going to be a great day.
Oh dear. That's a high bar that you've set. One that I will slink under lower and lower as the episode progresses.
I don't believe that for a moment. I think we'll get to more cheese talk later, but I'm so glad that you're here. I think the last time we had a proper chat was back in October of 2023 when you and Tom invited me over on the Watchfinder channel. And we talked about the best gaming watches, which was a ton of fun, but a lot has changed since then. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been pretty well. The scenery has changed a little bit. I'm doing my own thing now and I'm having fun with it. Never worked more hours in my life, but every single one of them is a joy. And in fact, now for my sins, my wife has joined me full time as well. So we are the family Morgan traveling troupe of watch acrobat artistes coming soon to a theatre near you. It's been really, really good. If I look back, it's been over just about a year since I went out on my own. And one, it feels like the shortest year that I've ever lived. And two, it feels like the longest year that I've ever lived. So much has been crammed into it. There's been so much momentum that's been built. I've done so many fun things that I never thought I would ever do. I've met so many interesting people. And it's like living a dream in a very corny sense. But like one of those dreams where, like a fever dream, you know? Where you're just like, oh my God, all these things are happening. Oh, I can't keep, oh, that's happening now. That's like that. So on the one hand, it's unbelievably fantastic and I'm incredibly grateful. And on the other hand, my trousers are permanently on fire, which is also good. It keeps me motivated.
Sounds toasty. Sounds exciting. Sounds good though. I mean, you look good, you sound good. And it keeps you young, I believe. Yes?
Thank you. I did Invisalign on my teeth.
Okay.
I had enough people commenting that my teeth were too British.
Are you serious right
bad. Now? Yeah, I'm totally serious. So I had Invisalign, and now
they look splendid. Not that there was anything wrong with them previously. Also, kind of rude of people to comment on that. Like, you don't tune in for people's teeth. I think if you tune in, you're tuning in to hear about watches. Yes, but
well. You don't comment on the internet unless you want to make someone cry, is what my mum always used to tell me. So there you go. You've got to take the punches.
Those are the rules, I guess. But I was going to ask, and I think I already know the answer, but I was always curious because the amount of content that you put out is quite staggering. I can't do that. I wouldn't be able to survive, honestly. But I'm always curious, when someone creates a lot of content, do you read through all the comments on your videos or Instagram posts or anything like that? Or how do you handle that as a creative generator of content?
Oh, as all creators do, really badly. Thankfully, these days I am entirely AI, including the person you're talking to right now.
Ah,
So actually, it's great. I can be downstairs playing the PlayStation whilst you're talking to AI me,
mhm.
and generally it just makes the whole thing a lot easier. But back when I was a real boy, the comments, I'm sure you'll be exactly the same. You read the positive comments and you
Mm,
think, there, that's not real. People
mm.
don't actually say nice things, and you dismiss it. And you read the negative comments and you go, oh, it's true. They found me out. I'm busted. Um, but these days, so I read some comments early on, but it's generally advisable not to delve too deep into them because there's a lot of people on the internet. Many of them are lovely, wonderful people, and a few of them who are quite voracious in their commenting are quite unhinged and want you to join that club. So, yeah, stuff. I think for the most part, what I try and do is connect with people in real life. So,
Mm.
attend shows, in the UK, the US, hopefully venture out further, Middle East as well, and actually meet people in person. Because the internet's like those two dogs barking at each other through a gate. As soon as you pull that gate back and it becomes real life, it's a very different story. So meeting people in real life is always much better. It is nice to see positive comments, and I do try to engage with people, but it's there be monsters.
I agree. A lot of people can probably relate if you've made anything and you've put it on the internet. The positive comments roll right off our backs, like, you don't really know me. That can't be true. So you lose on that front. And then the negative comments you do believe, and so you lose on that front. So I
Yeah.
guess the general advice is just be very selective, pick and choose, and don't dive too deep into it because it's not real life, is it? It's the internet.
Here's actually a tip,
Hmm.
because I used to get into this routine of looking at other creators' channels, looking at their videos and thinking, wow, like everyone was really nice to them. Teddy is one of these guys who you look at his comments and great dude, great videos, but you read the comments, you think the man was handing out free bars of gold by the way that people are so positive. And you're like, why are people not that positive of mine? And then what I realized is when you look on the front end, all of the negative comments sink to the bottom and all the positive comments get thumbs up and rise to the top. When you look on the back end, you don't get it. You just get them as they come. So
Mm-hmm.
if you really want to get a proper sense of how people feel about what you're doing, um, both in a rewarding but also in a constructive way, look at the comments as they appear on the front end on actual YouTube or whatever platform you use, and you will see how they have been filtered and curated by the audience at large. And it gives you a much more positive outlook, unless you've made crap content, which sometimes I do.
That is, I guess, a way to kind of gauge and sort of do like a litmus test of sorts. But
Yeah.
why are stories so important? I think that's something that you've been incredibly great at consecutively over many years. Um, you really emphasize great storytelling, but why do you feel like that is so critical for us to kind of engage? Again, keeping with the content creator theme, what is it about stories that really make us, I guess, watch until the end?
You've opened Pandora's box there a little bit,
Okay.
because storytelling extends back way beyond YouTube content creators, digital creators. Storytelling is the medium to make information stick. If you look at cave paintings on walls, it's not just the food's in the oven, I'll be back in 15 minutes. They're stories of hunts that went on, or wars that happened, or interactions between people. Because when you tell something as a story, it gives context that is much more relatable. And so a person is more likely to take on that information because it has context. So here's a great example of that. I could just give you a list of rules and say, like, don't steal, don't do this, that, and the other. Or I could tell you a story about how those rules were discovered and package it up in something that is relatable as a person. So then you think, what am I not supposed to do? I remember the story. That makes sense. And so, of course, the Bible, various fables and parables and stories around the Bible and just other folklore are all based on this idea of giving you a reason why you should adhere to this piece of information with context so it makes sense. Because if you take watches at face value, then pause
for laughter. Yep. Good.
If if you just give the information over on watches and you say, oh, it's 40 millimeters, it's got a strap width of 20 millimeters, the lug width is X, it's water resistant to so and so, what do you have but just a bunch of very emotionless stats? If you then understand the context for how it got there in the first place, you are more likely to remember it, engage with it, react with it emotionally, and build a bond that then when you see that watch, you buy that watch, you pursue that watch, you wear it, you get that sort of sense of lingering satisfaction. When you think about some of the memories that stick with you most prominently as a person, there are two types. There's the one that makes you the happiest. The cut grass smell, playing in the summer as a kid, like the summer of 1995, and then there's the ones that are the embarrassing moments. And both of those, they can come to you at different times and they can come very, very strongly, but they are both laden with emotion and context. And that's why storytelling, I think, isn't just important for imparting information, but for connecting with people and bringing people together in the way that it's been done since time immemorial.
Very beautifully said. I do have a follow-up question later on, and it involves watches as investments, but we're not there just yet. Because it's very interesting. You say these connections, they kind of imprint themselves onto us, and they mean things to us because of the additional sort of input streams that have layered themselves on top of each other. So I find it very, very interesting because I also have like a personal experience. Like growing up in school, we had a history teacher. His name was Mr. Forney. He was a history teacher, but he was also the physical education teacher as well. He was the PE teacher.
Mr. Forney, the physical education teacher.
He had a way of teaching history where it was storytelling driven, and it reeled you in, and you were just fascinated. You wanted to know what happens next. And to this day, right, I'm hitting 40 soon. I can recall historical events because they were told as these interesting stories by Mr. Forney. So I got great grades that year, and then the class size was too big, and I was moved to Mrs. Jarvis's class in junior high, and it just went down. Oh my God. She was a fine lady. She just didn't have great storytelling skills. She was fine. She was fine.
I think I had exactly the same history teacher, and we actually spent I think you guys call it a semester, but we call it a term. A period of time between school holidays whereby we were studying the ancient Egyptians, and rather than just going through the story, the textbooks, which are usually very, very dry, we actually built out a model, a full scale model of the River Nile and all the things that happened around it. And every lesson that we had on it was to build another thing and tell the stories of those things. And it was, absolutely stuck with me. Like those are the best teachers, the ones who can bring context to the things that you're learning, rather than just saying, here's the dry facts, somehow make them stick. As soon as you have that context, they mean so much more. They become so much more relevant to the rest of your life. And that's always the thing that you hear. When will I ever use that? That's the thing you'd hear in pure maths class. When would I ever use that?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps if the teacher spent more time explaining when and where it could be used, even if that context isn't relevant to you in your career path, it might even give people more inspiration to pursue career paths they didn't know exist. So it's so important, especially for children, to be able to be given that kind of education. And when it comes to watches, it's what I wanted to do was to take those fascinating, interesting stories built predominantly around people and not necessarily the object, and put life back into them. Because I do think that sometimes the watch brands, especially the legacy ones, the bigger ones, they have a habit of trying to over polish the stories and turn it into a, raise these creators like the Abraham Louis Breguets and people like that onto pedestals and just suggest everything they did was perfect. When the reality is it's their challenge and their struggle to achieve something, the lows that contrast the highs that make their journeys interesting. I actually had an experience with Piaget once. They had the ultimate concept thin watch, the Altiplano. It was the thinnest watch in the world at the time, 2 millimeters thick, obviously since being surpassed by a gnat's whisker. But nevertheless, an incredible achievement, and still really the thinnest watch that maintains the usability and functionality of a traditional watch. It all got a little bit, the rules got bent a little bit later on. But I was talking to their PR team and they said, yeah, like we're really good and we made this watch. And I said, well, what challenges did you have in making it? No challenges. We're fantastic. We are Piaget. Piaget makes no mistakes. We envisaged this thing and created it, and therefore it was. And I just thought, one, that's bollocks. Two, I want to know about how it was hard. We watch sports not to see teams that just crush the opposition without any kind of sense of a bead of sweat. In fact, that's usually when people get turned off sports, when there's just a dominant performance without any challenger. You want to see the grit. You want to see the struggle. And so I said, can I speak to your engineering team, like the watchmakers, the designers, etc.? And there was some humming and hawing, and eventually it was agreed that I could speak to them. And oh my goodness, they had so many different stories about, having to find a material they could use that was strong enough to make that thin without bending. But then, of course, if it's that strong, you can't use the traditional tool sets to cut it, because now you're making the case out of the things the tools are made of. So now you need a different type of tool, and you chew up a bunch of different machines trying to figure it out. And my favorite story from that particular development was this particular watch is all built into the case back. Like the case back is also the case sides, and then the crystal is sealed on the top. So it's front loaded rather than movements usually go in via the back. And they were building it up. It was running perfectly, good timing. Everything's great. They would then put the crystal on, and the timing would go completely haywire, like off the charts. And they were thinking, oh, maybe the crystal is binding with the balance wheel. It's rubbing. They investigated. No, it wasn't. There was a very small amount of space, but there was space. And as soon as they took the crystal off again, it was fine. And they just couldn't figure it out. So after some research, and I think perhaps they even spoke to some various universities to try and figure out what was going on, what they discovered was the balance wheel was running so close to the crystal that it was generating a static charge. Like, when you rub a balloon on your jumper and you get that electricity. And so that static charge was binding the mainspring. So it was running out of time. And so they had to put an anti-static coating on the inside of the crystal to prevent that from happening. But in that development of that particular struggle, they came across something in watchmaking that in the hundreds of years of watchmaking that have existed beforehand has never, ever been experienced before. Like that, for me, then takes that watch and turns it from that's pretty cool, 2 millimeters to, wow, like that's a piece of engineering. Absolutely fantastic. And I think with watches especially, they're so small and the stuff that happens in them is so kind of inconsequential to most people's lives. And even in a visual aspect, it's very hard to see, for example, Ulysse Nardin's incredible constant force tourbillon mechanism, because the silicon component that makes it happen is the size of an ant's toenail. And so you need to bring to life the stories and the people who make those stories happen to really fall in love with the watches.
Fantastic point. You really, I think at its core is you need to make people care. To say that everything was perfect, we willed it into existence and there were no problems along the way. Like, all right, cool, good for you, I guess. But making people understand and care the struggle. I think that's what kind of sticks with you, and you go, I appreciate this watch so much more. You've uncovered something, like you said, that the hundreds of years that humans have been making watches, that's not something we've encountered because we just haven't put ourselves into that scenario. And now I appreciate it all the better. Now, of course, whether that makes a good sort of party conversation piece of, did you know that they had to put an anti-static coating on the underside of the crystal to keep the mainspring from running out of time? It depends on who the company is, I guess, like who the audience is. But yeah, make people care.
You need to come to my parties. Oh my goodness, we're talking about anti-static charge all left and right. It's amazing. Hollywood has been going through an interesting set of challenges at the moment, where it wants to bring in more inclusivity and diversity, which is a really, really good thing, but struggling to do so in a way that actually captures the imagination. And so they run into a problem whereby, for example, in wanting to present more female heroes in movies, they want to show the challenge and the struggle of a protagonist, but as a female. But they also don't want to show the struggle that you need to have as a protagonist to make the success worthwhile and give it contrast, because they don't want to paint a woman in a bad light. And I know when everyone brings up this topic, they talk about Alien and Sigourney Weaver, but it's such a good example of how a character should start off with nothing, with struggle, with challenges, and then have to fight through it. So you then get the reward of that journey, as opposed to being overpowered the whole way through. As someone who loves video games, you'll know if you start off with a character that's overpowered, the game isn't fun. You want to have that challenge and struggle. And it's the same for everything. Again, the context of a story going from this is the challenge, this is the problem, this is how it was overcome, is how we learn. I heard a very interesting thing recently that very much aligns with a modern take on society. And okay, deviates from watches a little bit, but hey, I've started now, so I'll
bring
finish.
Bring it.
So we are, when I say we, human beings, we are evolved not to think things through. We're evolved to have a gut feeling. Because if you have a group of people and every single one of them thinks through the problem at its entirety, considers every positive, every negative, like our brain consumes so much energy, it's a waste of energy. We'd need to eat so much more food to do that kind of thing. So we all tend to have a gut reaction built on experience and just sort of a general emotive reaction to things. And we commune as a group and we discuss. The idea being that this group has come to be purely through geographic means. And so everyone has a slightly different gut reaction. What the internet has done is take all of those people and put them in rooms with people who have exactly the same gut reaction. And so then reasoning, discussion, debate then falls by the wayside. And once again, it demonstrates that the art of storytelling, the demonstration of that challenge, putting people in a room together where things don't necessarily rub the right way and having to do something with that to make a success of it, is the way that we learn, is the way that we enjoy things. If making a watch was really as easy as some of the brands say, then I don't think they would sell very many at all, because it's kind of boring.
Well, anyone could do it then.
Exactly. They like to have this idea that, well, we are special, so it's easy for us. But they're only people. The people working at watch brands are people too, They're not, well, some of them are machines. I think the people working at Rolex might be machines.
So we don't talk about that. We love everyone equally and accept them for who they are. Let's dive deeper into more watches, because you have a soft spot for British watchmaking. And I know that you've worked with Christopher Ward and Studio Underdog, just to name a few. One, what's that like? And tell me more about the whole Fears Studio Underdog Gimlet video shoot that you did for them, because I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I found that to be fascinating. I mean, I saw you in a light that I haven't seen you just yet. I mean, you were like director of photography, you were cameraman, you were director. Give me more, because that fascinated me.
Unashamed plug for what it is that I do, if you like. My passion, I guess, if you like, is comms, is talking to people, is sharing information, is telling stories. And people think of storytelling as words on a page or a film in the cinema or something like that. But stories are told with almost everything and anything that you can see, feel, hear, taste, touch. There's always a journey that you go on where you start in one place, you have a transformation, and you end in another. And as someone who absolutely lives and breathes that kind of storytelling, I look for it in the smallest sentence and the longest novel, whether it's just an exchange of looks or it is a 3-hour extended edition of Lord of the Rings. And so that's the thing that I enjoy and the skill set that I believe I have that I can impart to brands who either, for example, are already doing an incredible job and looking to step up to the next level, or they have an inkling of something great, but they are lacking in some areas and they want to, again, move to their next level. And so for me, it's never about imparting my own story onto what they do. It's about finding their story, pulling it out and bringing it to life. And with the Gimlet, Richard and Nicholas, they share a story together, which is one of struggle and hardship, but also success and, most importantly, friendship. So Nicholas already had his brand growing. You know, the story of his where he had to revive his family brand, stack shelves in the supermarket to make ends meet, going through to finding success, building stability, and then helping Richard with his up and coming brand is why that's probably the main reason why I'm enamored with British watchmaking, because it feels like it's a very, very supportive community. That does extend out into the wider world, but of course, being in England, I get to see that more firsthand. And so I really wanted to help them tell the story of that friendship, but through a lens that brought the Gimlet to life as well. And so the concept was that these two men, they meet with each other every now and then to catch up on old times, to show that each other what they've been making and what they're up to, and to see what's coming next. And that perhaps one of those catch-ups would occur deep in a forest somewhere in this old rickety house that is, some say, haunted. And that they would, on a rainy, stormy night, exchange two watches that they had equally been working on, and some magic would happen and they would be bound together. And that's kind of really how the story of the watch came to be. I mean, there was less magic and more drinking, I think, but you can say the magic really happens after a certain time of night when so many drinks have been drunk. But they wanted to combine their experiences together and bring something to life that was new and different and unexpected. And the story in 30 seconds or so was to try and impart the feeling that perhaps they felt, the shock magic moment when they thought we could do something together. And as they developed this thing and seeing that progress, realizing, I think we're onto something really quite incredible here. This is way more than either of us expected. Trying to capture that feeling and just throw it at people on Instagram in 30 seconds or less through the medium of film.
Well, it was beautifully executed, and I think you did a phenomenal job. I stopped, I watched, I admired, and I envied. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So well done, well done.
Thank you. It was so much fun to do, and I would say, I don't know if they would say the same. Hopefully they would. But those guys and the other brands that I work with, but I don't have that kind of relationship. I like to build friendships with these people, and I don't tend to work with people that I don't really know that well. I like to build those relationships and then find a common factor whereby we can help and it adds value to what they do. And ultimately it means that, I never work a day in my life. I'm just coming up with zany ideas and trying to figure out how to make those happen on a daily basis. And it keeps me very happy indeed.
Well, I'm happy to hear. And it seems like people are saying yes. So you're doing something right, I think. And take that, okay? Keep that in your back pocket the next time you accidentally read one of those negative comments. Just remember that people are saying yes to you and things are happening.
It certainly seems that way, and I don't for a moment want to rest on my laurels, because if there's one thing I've learned is that there's always a lot more to learn. And the more I learn, especially in this interesting era where AI is becoming so much more prevalent, the more I learn about what's really actually valuable to people and what is just a skin deep veneer that might look flashy but actually has no substance, how I make sure I do the former and not the latter, as AI is pumping the internet more and more and more filled with the latter. And in fact, a recent campaign that I worked on with Richard was to, I would say, bring to life the opposite of that, showing kind of some of the hardships really that AI can imprint upon creators in being copied and the challenges that brings, but utilizing it for the powers of good to make something that's fun and interesting that all of those creators were hugely on board with and had fun with. And yeah, it just makes me smile. I have these moments, in the shower where I stop and think, my schedule today is weird. That's a weird schedule today. I'm doing strange things.
Don't the best ideas just come in the shower? I find personally, for me, just the best.
They do. There is a reason for that as well, because you're choosing not to think about that thing. And so a different part of your subconscious brain can do the processing for you. It's very, very highly recommended that if you get stuck on a problem, to go and do something simple but distracting instead, and then let the good brain do the work.
Aha. See, that's a pro tip right there. Little did the viewers and listeners know that they were going to get that golden nugget of wisdom. So,
damn it, my secret's out.
Your secret's out. Everybody go take a shower after listening to this podcast or watching it, depending on the medium that you choose to engage with. But that leads me to another question, and that is product or marketing. As a watch brand, do you need both in today's day and age? Because again, we started out by diving deeper into this by engaging and exploring the magic that is storytelling. Mm-hmm. Can a brand be successful with just having a fantastic product and poor marketing, or does it need to have at least a okay amount of marketing in order to kind of reach the masses in today's day and age?
That is an excellent question, and one that I couldn't have prompted better if I had sent you a little note saying, please ask this question, which I didn't do. Although now it seems like I did.
Yeah.
If you think about it as product and marketing, then you've gone down the wrong route. It's all comms. Every single part of it is about communicating what your brand is about. So we've just been talking about some of the more public campaign work that we have created, conceptualized, produced, whatever. But all of those stories start at a much broader brand level. And in the case of, say, Studio Underdog, they have such a good handle on brand, which means they have such a good handle on product. That means the communication itself, like the marketing, as you might term it, doesn't really have to be heavy-handed at all. When you look at what Richard produces and the campaigns that he does, they are never, you need to buy my watch, please buy my watch, these are the reasons you should buy my watch. His watch sells itself. People know, they look at it, they like it, they see the price, they like it, they look at the spec, they like it. The marketing is just all about awareness. It's all about engagement and storytelling and that emotional piece. And it all starts because he knows why he is doing what he is doing. So another aspect of the comms bubble that I work on is, why are you even doing this? Why are you even here? Especially for brands that have a legacy, where they've had multiple CEOs over many generations, an original founder 100 plus years ago. They've been through different eras of pocket watch, quartz crisis, integrated, blah, 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 blah. And they are struggling to sort of thread it all together and understand what the common theme is that runs through it. And if you don't understand why you're doing something, well, when you carry on and go ahead and do it, it's very difficult to explain to the person who might purchase it why it exists. So the person who's thinking about purchasing it really has to do a lot of legwork for themselves. They have to figure out their own reason why they think this exists. And of course, that is always going to shrink the pool of people who are willing to make that purchase. Whereas if you can look at something, you can look at the people behind it. You can look at the images that they take of it. You can look at the videos they create of it. You can look at the people that they work with and the way they position themselves and how they position themselves. And you think, all of this makes a lot of sense. Then there is no marketing. It is all just an extension of that original brand. And so I'm a huge proponent of the fact that the less you can say about the product, the better. If you have a really strong understanding of who you are as a brand, that will be imparted through into the visual language of the product, both in how it looks, but also how it functions and what it does, and also sort of like the legacy that it has that you're trying to build around it. Regardless of whether or not the brand is old, you may have your story, and this is why I did it, and this is why you will be emotionally connected to it. And some of the most popular brands right now, whether they're old or new, they're expensive, they're affordable, are all built around having an incredible understanding of brand. Like Rolex is a ridiculous example to take because it's so successful, but it's so successful because it's so consistently managed its brand. You can't see the seams between when they evolved what they do from one era to another. And it has evolved and changed why it does what it does. But you just don't see that. It's always subtle. It's always blending. It's always very knowing and very clear cut. That gets translated into a visual design language. Like, you don't tell me if you saw the lug of a Rolex or the edge of a bezel or a hand or even a marker that you wouldn't immediately go, Rolex. And there are a few brands that I think have done that really well. Studio Underdog is one of the youngest that's done a great job of that. Moser is a great example of a consistent understanding of brand and design language. Jaune is another. You can tell a Jaune from just a crown, from just a screw even on the dial. And so the art of comms plugged into that, when you understand why you're doing what you're doing, and that's legitimate. I don't mean making up some bull. What's the one they always say? Disrupting. Everyone's disrupting everything all the time. Oh, this whole world is disrupted. It is, but not for the reasons that these brands think it is. But actually, when you have a reason for doing something, when it makes sense. So, for example, with Studio Underdog, you think, oh, he's the watermelon guy. He makes fun, colorful watches. But actually, when you look at the design, he's bringing very serious, balanced, beautiful, vintage, timeless inspired design, and then adding and elevating it to a modern sense of fun and freshness. Then you sort of say, okay, well, then that's my path. That's the arena in which I can play in. I can't step outside that. That's not me, but I can stay in this. And it just creates very, very concise, very, very understandable and digestible products. So then when it comes to telling people about it, you don't have to sell it in, make people believe and understand. You just go, hey guys, this is what we do and this is why we do it. We're having a great time. And everyone goes, can I have fun too? And it's as simple as that. A really good example of that was the founding of Dollar Shave Club. I don't know if you remember the advert, but the dude was just like, we want to make great razors. We don't want them to be expensive. We're having fun. We're people just like you. We get it. We're not a corporation. We don't have shareholders and this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh, I get it. Like, you're just like me. And actually, in the watch industry, these days you're finding collectors are moving away from or getting cold on some of these big legacy brands that are basically putting all of their eggs in the heritage basket, because now they can speak to a watchmaker like a Felipe Picoleg, a guy who doesn't make a huge amount of watches, but he makes them with you, for you, how you want them to be, and you get to see every last little like nut and bolt and screw and spring and wheel come together, and you get so much more of a reward because the context makes so much more sense. I don't know if you're familiar with the watchmaker called Andre Burkus.
I've heard of Burkus, yep.
So he is a lunatic. He doesn't make very many watches a year. He makes them by himself. I think he may have brought someone in who helps him finish. Each one tends to be unique. He's doing a few series pieces now, but each one is unique. And he builds them as a journey with the person who has commissioned the watch. And that watch could go in any direction because he might try something, it doesn't quite work, so he pivots. And it's this cobbled together madman process that the people who buy into it absolutely love. Like they come and see him in his home in the countryside and pet his horses. They go on road trips together. Like they do all sorts of crazy stuff. And actually, some of the collectors of his have told me that when the watch is delivered, it's actually a really sad time because the journey is over. But thankfully, his watches are hideously unreliable. So a lot of them have to go back again. And the collector's like, oh, my watch is broken. Let's go on a road trip.
It is an absolute experience that you're like buying into and choosing to partake in, not just the end result of getting the watch, but you're like, I get to hang out with this watchmaker and do fun stuff together with him.
Dude's a lunatic. Yeah,
that's
absolutely
wild.
And I am learning more and more and more and more and more that watches aren't something that you buy yourself and look at by yourself. You engage with other people. Watches are just so much more enjoyable when you engage with other people, whether it's in an online community or it's in local meetups, or whether you travel the world and meet new people. That's what brings the A game for me, is when you look across the room, especially when you're in the airport or something, and you see someone and they've got a bel canto on, or they've got something wild on like a renaissance, and you know that you can cross that room and say to that person, that's a really cool watch, and they'll be like, oh man, thank you, and you'll get talking and it'll be like you've known that person forever. I am not a sociable person. You can ask my wife about that. She will agree that I'm not a very sociable person. And I always thought that perhaps I was an introvert when I was growing up in school because I didn't really fit in with any of the groups. None of the people that were there, I don't know, we just didn't gel. But I realized that I was just hanging around or trying to be friends with the wrong people. And especially since doing my own thing and going out and meeting more and more people, I realized I'm not an introvert at all. I just needed to find the right people.
You just needed to find your people, your tribe, the people that share your love, madness, and appreciation for these tiny little things.
People who go to parties and talk about static coatings.
Absolutely. Sign me up. Sign me up. I that was one of the core questions that I really wanted to get at is, we come for the watches, but we truly, really, honestly stay for the people in the community. And that's what kind of keeps us going aside from, like sustenance and sunshine and love, isn't it?
Well, that's basically how we met and got to know each other. I came to Seattle to do an event there, and then we had like a romantic getaway together. Much cuddling was had.
Let me insert.
And
I'll insert some photos and videos into this podcast now.
I was going to say, don't hide. Don't hide behind the reality. But we got on really well because we have this common theme, and even though that's the first time we'd ever met in person, we spent a week together doing a bunch of fun stuff, and yeah, it was great. It was I always feel when I leave these events and meet people, you're not the only person I've met. I'll just let you know.
Wow,
that right now.
Hurtful.
But when I meet people like you and we have a good time and then I go home, it's always, I get the same feeling I used to get after summer camp as a kid. So I was in the Air Cadets, and I kind of found myself with more people that I kind of got on with in the Air Cadets. People like regiment and beatings. And you would have a summer camp and you would bond with people, and then you would leave and you would have that moment. That's what I have after doing events and meeting people and then leaving. It's just it's kind of like nostalgic, rose tinted in a way, but kind of sad too. Side note, a very strange experience I had after playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I had exactly the same feeling.
Go on.
So I got so ingratiated into the world of Arthur Morgan, like noodling around by the campfire and chopping wood, and I didn't fast travel anywhere. I would just enact my life as if I lived there. When the game came to an end, I had that same feeling. It was very, very bizarre that my brain had gone, oh yeah, you were there at that place and did those things. It's very strange.
The power of gaming. No. The power of gaming. Great storytelling. That's the one. You've handled thousands of watches.
I'm glad you said watches.
Yes, I did. Oh, watches. Yes, you've handled thousands
Yeah.
of watches.
Mm.
What's the most underrated watch that you've handled that you can come up with at this moment in time?
Oh, that's a very, 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 very easy answer because I
Go on.
recently purchased it.
Don't say it's the Breguet. Don't. Is it?
Well, you can't ask the question then tell
Okay,
me
all
not
right.
to answer it.
I sit corrected. Please continue.
It's the Breguet tradition. Oh my goodness. It's so much. I knew it was good. It's so much better than I realized. As I explored that thing with my macro lens, I was absolutely blown away. It's unbelievable. So the experience of the Breguet. Okay, people have heard of Breguet. So you would say, well, how can a watch be underrated if it's from such a well-known brand? But the problem is people have heard of Breguet in the same way that, you've heard of Ted Bundy. You're like, not sure about that.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily like a good context, the name Breguet, with the output that it is currently creating. Huge depreciation, watches that feel like they don't belong in any time period, let alone this one, confused design, conflicted model lines. Based on what we were saying, Breguet don't know who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. It's as simple as that. But there are some watches that they make that somehow manage to, you throw enough at the wall, some of it's going to stick. And for me, the 37mm tradition, it's got the heritage, it's got the watchmaking, it's got the quality, it's got the story, it's got the dude with the big brain, all of those things. And, okay, it's not a cheap watch, but it's a gold watch with inner angles, all that good polishing stuff. You've got the front and the back. Any type of finishing technique you can think of, it's in there. It's got the media blasting, it's got the polished bevels, it's got black polished screws, it's got heat bluing, it's got hand engraving, it's got everything. And it costs the same as a steel Daytona if you buy it pre-owned. Steel Daytona RRP to buy the Breguet pre-owned. And actually, I discovered, because I thought no one had these things. But when you go into some of the WhatsApp groups and go, hey, look, I got a new watch, and you kind of expect everyone to go, oh, gross old man watch. All of the owners come out of the woodwork. No one bought them new, but they all come out and go, oh, I've got one of those too. I've got one of those too. I've got one of those too. And you soon realize that it's just everything you as an absolute watch nerd could ever want in a watch. I genuinely think there are aspects of that watch that can't be beaten at any price point, for a price point that people who aren't gazillionaires can scrape and stretch to and make work. And I did scrape and stretch and make work, and I'm a very happy boy. It's a very cool watch.
I was going to say, is Andrew Morgan finally satiated, or...
It doesn't work like that. You know full well it doesn't work like that.
I know.
Oh yeah, I ate a sandwich. I never need to eat again. No.
But honestly, it doesn't start out like that. It truly, honestly starts out with my dream watch, and then you acquire the dream watch, and then very quickly it falls apart from that point on, and becomes a disease.
Dreams. I dream about a lot of things.
Tell me, is the MB&F Legacy Machine LM101 still your favorite Grail piece that you're dreaming of, or have you come to your senses?
Well, that's a loaded question. Before I answer that, why don't you tell me, Mr. Poo Poo Pants, why you think that particular watch is one that shouldn't be my dream Grail watch?
I'm not saying what should or shouldn't be. I guess I sort of am. I guess I sort of am.
Your tone said it.
Mm.
Let's go on, out with it. Out with it.
Listen, Andrew, I'm entitled to my own opinions, okay? This is the internet.
Share those opinions. I want to hear those opinions.
I appreciate Max Buser and his mad scientist approach to watchmaking and the meticulous detail and creative sort of undertaking of, I want to make a watch that looks like a bullfrog, and then I need to figure out how to actually make it work like a watch. I respect that. I really do. I just personally don't want to wear a watch that looks like a bullfrog on my wrist. That's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying. Okay. So that's me. That's me. Please.
How about one that kind of looks like a bulbous penis instead? Because they also make one of those.
I
Is
am
that more
aware. I am also going to gracefully pass on that.
So my relationship with MB&F as someone who loves watches is I hugely admire the horological machine series, but there are actually very few that I would see myself owning. I would own them as desk toys, as like tactile fidget things, but I'm not sure that I'm the kind of person who could wear them in public. The Legacy Machine series, actually, if we go back to the who are you and what do you do question, the Legacy Machine series, I think, speaks much more strongly and vividly about a cohesive, consistent methodology, visual design language. And that's why, for me, the Legacy Machine series is so much more my style. And why the LM101 in particular over, say, the Perpetual or the Chronograph, which are both incredible works of engineering and design. Because for me, I consider often when you have a good brand that really has all those things nailed, they have their halo piece, which is your brand expressed to its broadest reaches. It's like utter highest limit of what's possible. But actually, when you look at the best brands, they also have what I call a discovery piece, which is the watch that is the purest, most pared back version of that brand. And both of those two watches fit in with that same story, but they're just at either end bookending the rest of the collection. And the LM101, there's such a purity to it. It's a time only watch. It's very, very simple mechanically and like from a complication perspective, but it is done in such an elegant and pure way that communicates artistry, complexity, imagination, quality, skill, history, but also contemporary, future, all the rest of it, all into one thing without feeling gimmicky or superfluous or even self-indulgent. That's why that one for me is the best one, because I personally think simplicity is the hardest thing to do.
Well said. And I'm happy for you, Andrew. I'm happy for you.
Well, you'll notice I can't ever give a simple answer, so I'm still trying to pursue the art of simplicity myself. But you are wrong.
I see.
And you should like the LM101 more than you do.
I'll tell you what, if someone gives me one, I will gladly accept it and cherish it and wear it forever, mostly because they gave it to me. So there you go.
Well, what grail would you be buying yourself?
Moi?
Yes. Moo.
It'd be the Perpetual Calendar Chronograph 2499, Patek Philippe, yellow gold.
Okay. Standard.
Whoa, what do you mean standard?
You know, standard grail, you know.
Okay.
Basic.
Thank you, Andrew. I love that you accept and love me for who I am and have never ever put me down. Thank you. Thank you.
I think a collection would have both of those things, because if we're talking about bookending a brand's collection, bookending watchmaking, what you're talking about is a watch that was created by an engineer, effectively. You make a movement and then the stuff falls where it may on the dial. You're not looking to create something that is consumer focused, if you like. And that is how watches and watchmaking was done by these guys. You'll notice that there's always like an Audemars and a Piguet, a Vacheron and a Constantin, a Patek and a Philippe, because you have one genius watchmaking engineer, a guy who thinks about wheels and gears and ratios and maths, and then you have a person who's trying to sell the damn things, who's like, please, for the love of God, can you make the perpetual calendars more readable? This is ridiculous. Can you do something to make them so people can actually remember how to set them, please? And the engineer, the architect, the watchmaker says, no, this is the way that I am making it, because it is easier to service, or it makes more sense to put the wheels here to get the ratio exactly as I want it. And so I think your grail and my grail represent both ends of the two ways to make a watch, either led by how it looks or led by how it functions.
That was
So we're both right.
Very elegantly and eloquently put. Well done. Well done. Since we're talking about these absolute behemoths within the watch collecting world, let's talk about investments. Thoughts on watches being investments? Let's just make it official.
Right. So a watch holding its value is definitely something that people should consider, because we don't have infinite buckets of money. Well, I don't have infinite buckets of money. So when I purchased my Breguet, I chose to purchase one pre-owned, and I chose to purchase a model that historically has held a very stable value, because it means I can then persuade myself to spend more than I realistically or sensibly should. And that means I get the watches that I really like without also feeling massively guilty. If I purchased a watch that, should the proverbial hit the fan, I needed to sell to cash in, and I lost most of the money on it, then I'd kind of be a fool. I don't have the luxury of doing that. There is a bracket of budget that I can do that in. I could buy a £500 watch, and if it all disappeared, then I'd rather it didn't, but it doesn't matter. But if I spend £5,000 or £10,000, I ideally don't want to be losing half of that, and that just makes the ownership experience more stressful. That's, I think, very different to buying watches explicitly to try and flip them and make money. Again, I am not going to complain if I buy a watch and I enjoy it and I can sell it, and it either washes its own face, or did you see the fly go past?
I did see the fly. I did. It made a guest appearance. I love it.
Fly. I don't know where it's come from and where it's gone.
It's probably going for your watches right now.
So if you purchase a watch, you enjoy that watch, and after enjoying it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, it washes its own face, or maybe even makes you some money. Happy days. But I think buying something to put in a safe, or buying something just to flip immediately, you're just getting in the way of people who actually want to enjoy the thing. And that's just a shame all round, because it puts the prices of watches up. It means that you and I can't enjoy the watches that perhaps we once might have been able to afford that we no longer can. Of course, the sad story of my missed opportunity with the FP Journe Chronometre Bleu, that's now a watch that I can't purchase because of investment buyers. And I'm sure there are many people who have bought them who do hold on to them and enjoy them, but the ridiculous resale values of them now have just put that thing completely out of touch for someone like me. And I resent that.
And I think a lot of listeners and viewers share that sentiment. So thank you for sharing.
I hope hearts are bleeding for my inability to purchase an FP Journe Chronometre.
I can hear tragic. Them right now. I can hear them right now. They're going to drop comments. Are there any cool projects that you're working with other brands right now that you can maybe talk to us a bit about, or is it all super secret, Andrew Morgan hush hush?
It's all generally super secret, because it's either around brand projects or watch projects that are in development that they would not be too happy about me sharing in advance. But I can talk about one that I was recently involved with that was a very enjoyable and interesting experience, which was the Christopher Ward Loco. And I especially enjoyed working on that because the team at Christopher Ward, right from the top down, Mike France, Peter, etc., it seems like, and it's almost hard to believe, that their goal is so innocent and so pure that it almost makes me and people suspicious. You're like, what's your game? Like, what are you up to here? And sometimes it's almost even to a fault. So effectively, their remit is to make incredible watchmaking accessible to as many people as possible. And, Mike and the gang, that he especially never had to do any of this. The guy has achieved his success. He could be lounging around on a yacht for the rest of his life if he wanted to, but he saw this opportunity to skim in between like the very cheapest watches that you can get from China and the big expensive watches you can get from Switzerland, and find a space in between those to provide great watchmaking at budgets that people didn't ordinarily expect. And that's where I kind of started my journey and relationship with Christopher Wood, is with the Bel Canto, because it just changed that paradigm such an enormous degree. And when they first introduced the Loco to me, it was like that experience again, but times 10. And what's so fascinating is the reaction to it. So they asked me to come on board and, like, be there. We're talking about litmus tests. Be their litmus test on a product. If we do this, how do you think people will respond to it? If we do that, what do you think people will think? There were a lot of really, really good, I'm going to use a really terrible business jargon word now, learnings.
Oh,
it's so that's been so incorporated into business language now. I can't even think what we were saying before learnings was a thing.
Synergy. Let's see, what else is there?
Maybe we'll blue sky on this later on.
We can circle back. We can circle back as per my previous email. What other terms can we use? Yeah.
Ping me after this, and we'll synergize.
Excellent.
But they had this product, and they were there's investment in this. There's big investment in this Loco, and they wanted to make sure that they weren't absolutely barking mad with it, as the name Loco suggests. And so I offered to sort of give thoughts on it, and also kind of give the thoughts, show it to a few select people, see what their reactions are, pass that in. And the reactions were fascinating. Bel Canto went something like this. People saw the Bel Canto for the first time and they went, "Oh, wow, that's really cool. Is that a Christopher Ward? God, that's amazing what they're doing. That's incredible. And it's got the chime. Like, it looks really high quality. At that price, wow. That's awesome." The Loco went something like this. For those who are listening and not seeing, I'm pulling faces that reflect confusion. Basically confusion.
Just confusion. Just
Shock.
general what?
Shock, maybe. Like double takes. Is that Christopher Ward? What the hell? No, that's not Christopher Ward. And it was almost like all the joy had just disappeared. People were so shocked by it that they thought, no, there's a trick somewhere. What are you playing at? No, I don't believe, because the front and back. Bel Canto was all in the front. But this time, the Loco, some of the actions around the back as well. And it's incredible to look at. And you flip this thing over and you're like, how? No, how? No, seriously though, how? And it was really fascinating to see that first-hand reaction before they had seen any press pictures or any release or anything like that. And that, for me, is a moment that I think I live for in this entire thing. It's like the joy of seeing people's reactions to things, whether it's telling them a story and they like the story and they're like, "Oh, I love that story," or they see a product and go, "Wow, that's a really cool product." And that, for me, has been the biggest shock factor reaction. The Loco was just pure, unadulterated confusion rage. And I just loved it. It just, with each person, it was like this does not compute, file memory overload, like spinning wheel of death type of situation where they just had to stop and process for a second. And that's why I love what those guys are doing. And so it was absolutely amazing to be able to come back to them and tell them that, and also help them pitch that product to the world and evolve the way that, let's face it, Bel Canto was a huge success, more so than they ever expected, and a lot of people ended up waiting a long time because Christopher Ward were like, "Oh my goodness, we have to figure out how to scale this." And so this time around with the Loco, it's done in more concentrated packages, so people can order the watch, it'd be made, it'd be delivered, satisfied. Then some more people can order it, and it's just been fantastic to be a part of that. And those are the kinds of journeys that I want to continue being on.
I love it. It really took, I think, a lot of people by surprise. Like you mentioned, it was confusion, it was shock and awe in many respects. The first thing that I thought was, yeah, how? And then I saw the back of it, and I did a triple take. Like, no, seriously, how? I'm getting Armin Strom vibes from this. This is kind of wild. Very, very cool. And again, congratulations to the team at Christopher Ward. Quite the release.
That concludes this episode of the Timist Podcast Series. A sincere thank you for hanging out with us. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, then please push all the buttons that will help you hear more of us in the future. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can drop a comment in the associated YouTube video or reach out to me on Instagram at TheTimistIG. Thanks for listening. I'm The Timist. Be well, and I'll catch you in the next one.